I was adjusting the rearview mirror of my BMW when an unexpected phone call completely derailed my life. My name is Denise, an architect at the age of 25, preparing for what I thought would be a normal family gathering at our Mercer Island estate. The caller ID displayed the private number of our longtime family butler, ringing with an unusual sense of frantic urgency. I answered the call expecting a simple question about the dinner menu, but his voice was violently trembling with pure terror. "Pretend you had a sudden medical emergency because you absolutely cannot drive that BMW today," he frantically pleaded over the receiver. I initially assumed it was some kind of elaborate joke until his tone grew even more desperate. "Please believe me, because I am begging you to step away from the vehicle," he whispered in absolute panic. He explicitly warned me that my own family had deliberately tampered with the brake lines just moments ago. A heavy wave of chilling realization washed over my entire body as I instinctively dropped the car keys onto the cold concrete floor. I slowly backed away from the treacherous machine while staring at the dark fluid pooling underneath the chassis in absolute disbelief. If you want to discover how I survived this deadly betrayal from my own blood relatives, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Your continuous support provides the essential motivation I desperately need to expose these dark family secrets to the world. Please leave a comment below, letting me know exactly where you are tuning in from today, so we can connect. Now let us dive directly into the terrifying truth behind this unforgivable family deception right now. The sinister plot against my life actually began unfolding exactly 2 hours before that terrifying phone call took place. Norman had already noticed some highly suspicious financial activities within the household, so he deliberately positioned himself near the heavy wooden doors of the library to monitor a private meeting. My dad was pacing across the room, while my stepmother Julie and my half-brother Jack were aggressively demanding a permanent solution to their mounting financial problems. The real estate empire my father built had secretly collapsed under the weight of terrible investments over the past 5 years. He was facing imminent federal indictments for corporate fraud if he failed to produce a massive injection of capital by the end of the month. Jack had simultaneously managed to infuriate a violent criminal syndicate by failing to repay hundreds of thousands of dollars in illicit gambling debts. These desperate circumstances transformed my wealthy relatives into ruthless predators, willing to sacrifice my life for their own financial salvation. The trust fund established by my late mother was an impenetrable financial fortress that I would exclusively control upon reaching my next birthday. Eliminating me before that specific date remained the only viable loophole, allowing my father to claim the position of primary beneficiary. Once the legal authority transferred to him, he could freely liquidate the inherited assets to pay off the mobsters, saving Jack from certain death. He would also possess enough remaining capital to satisfy his corporate creditors, avoiding a lengthy prison sentence for his financial crimes. Norman held his breath as Jack spoke with a chilling level of arrogance about the mechanical sabotage. "The mechanic sliced the brake line exactly as we discussed, so the fluid will drain out completely by the time she hits the steep incline near the island exit," Jack stated. Jack continued explaining how he had paid the corrupt mechanic in untraceable cash, ensuring there would be no financial paper trail linking the sabotage back to our family estate. He confidently assured them the police investigators would simply blame the fatal mechanical failure on a complete lack of proper vehicle maintenance. Julie immediately responded with a tone of chilling satisfaction, validating the brutal decision they were making. "A tragic traffic accident is the only logical way to secure the trust fund without drawing any unwanted attention from the local authorities," Julie coldly rationalized. Julie praised his meticulous planning while reminding my father that they needed to act like grieving parents the moment the authorities contacted them about the fatal crash. The silence from my father was perhaps the most devastating revelation of the entire horrific conversation. Instead of defending his only daughter, he chose to prioritize his failing real estate company over my survival. Just make sure the garage is completely clear before she goes down there to start the engine," my dad finally muttered in defeat. Norman realized the execution of their plan was already in motion, requiring immediate intervention on his part. He understood the severe danger he was placing himself in by choosing to betray his current employers. However, his unwavering loyalty always belonged exclusively to my late mother, ensuring he would never allow her only child to be murdered in cold blood. The elderly man carefully retreated from the heavy mahogany doors, placing his feet deliberately on the edges of the floorboards, preventing any accidental creaking noises. He navigated the intricate network of servant hallways until he safely reached the isolated security of his personal quarters. He locked the door with trembling hands before retrieving his personal cellular device, hidden beneath a stack of folded clothes. Knowing every second mattered, he furiously dialed my private number, praying he could stop me from getting behind the wheel of that doomed vehicle. Later that exact same evening, I realized surviving this horrific family betrayal required erasing my digital footprint completely before they noticed my prolonged absence. Removing the primary SIM card from my personal cell phone was the absolute first step in disappearing without leaving a traceable electronic path behind. I intentionally tossed the disabled mobile device into the open window of a randomly departing taxicab to actively mislead anyone attempting to track my physical movements across the city. Walking several agonizing blocks through the chilling darkness brought me to a rundown public payphone situated outside a completely deserted convenience store. I nervously dialed the familiar number of my best friend Chloe, praying she would answer her device despite the unusually late hour of the night. She arrived at the designated intersection exactly 10 minutes later, finding me trembling uncontrollably under the flickering glow of the broken neon streetlights. Climbing into the passenger seat of her vehicle brought a temporary wave of relief, though my heart continued pounding fiercely against my ribs. My paranoid eyes remained rigidly locked onto the rearview mirror, frantically searching for any suspicious headlights following us through the empty metropolitan streets. "Keep driving straight toward the main highway because you absolutely cannot stop your vehicle until I say it is totally safe," I instructed her, with a severely shaking voice. Chloe nodded her head firmly while gripping the leather steering wheel with intense focus to reassure me during this incredibly chaotic escape from my own bloodline. She clearly understood the massive danger I was currently facing without requiring any lengthy explanations about the terrible things my relatives had orchestrated. "I know a highly reliable contact who manufactures fake identification documents down in the South District, so I will bring everything to you tomorrow morning," she promised with quiet confidence. We safely navigated through the sprawling urban shadows in tense silence until reaching a completely unremarkable cash-only motel situated on the dark outskirts of Seattle. This particular establishment was exactly the kind of forgotten place where a terrified woman could easily vanish from the world without triggering any unwanted questions from curious bystanders. Handing a crumpled pile of $100 bills directly to the apathetic night clerk quickly secured a room key without requiring a single piece of official government identification. Entering the dingy motel room felt like stepping into a nightmare reality where the people sharing my DNA actively wanted me buried in a shallow grave. "Remember to secure all the interior deadbolts, avoiding contacting anyone until you successfully activate your new untraceable burner phone," Chloe whispered before slipping quietly back into the unforgiving night. I immediately pushed a heavy wooden dresser directly against the main doorframe to create an additional layer of physical security against potential assassins hired by Jack. Sitting completely alone on the edge of the stiff mattress finally allowed the horrific reality of their murderous financial greed to fully sink into my exhausted mind. My father and Julie were fully prepared to sacrifice my existence just to clear their massive corporate debts without showing a single ounce of parental remorse. I was clearly no longer a beloved family member, but merely a disposable biological obstacle standing between my greedy relatives and a massive inherited fortune. Shedding tears over their unforgivable cruelty seemed like a massive waste of physical energy when I desperately needed complete mental clarity to plan my next strategic moves against them. Surviving this darkest night meant fully accepting this devastating emotional betrayal, while carefully plotting a ruthless legal counterattack to completely destroy their impending criminal victory. Early the following morning, I completely altered my physical appearance before stepping out into the unforgiving daylight to execute the next crucial phase of my survival plan. Wearing an oversized trench coat paired with dark sunglasses provided enough temporary anonymity to safely hail a passing taxi heading directly toward the downtown financial district. My ultimate destination was the highly secure corporate office building belonging to my lawyer, Mr. Hawthorne, who exclusively handled all the complex legal matters regarding my maternal inheritance. Shortly after my discreet arrival, Chloe walked confidently through the glass lobby doors carrying a thick manila envelope containing the forged identification materials we had previously discussed. She silently handed over the counterfeit state driver license alongside an untraceable prepaid debit card without offering any unnecessary emotional pleasantries or lingering for comforting hugs. Use these specific documents carefully because that fabricated identity does not exist anywhere within the official government databases, Chloe stated firmly before immediately departing the legal premises to maintain our strict operational security. Sitting securely inside the soundproof conference room allowed Mr. Hawthorne to thoroughly review the intricate legal stipulations governing the massive trust fund established by my late mother. He meticulously examined every single hidden clause before validating the terrifying reality driving my family toward committing premeditated murder for financial gain. These legal documents clearly stipulate that if you unexpectedly pass away before reaching your upcoming milestone birthday, your father automatically inherits total controlling authority over the entire financial estate, he explained with deep professional concern. Hearing those precise words spoken aloud confirmed my darkest suspicions regarding their ruthless motivation to permanently eliminate me from the biological equation. I immediately instructed him to bypass his standard bureaucratic protocols to secretly investigate the recent outbound financial transactions originating from the primary corporate accounts managed by my father. Mr. Hawthorne utilized his extensive network of financial forensic experts to digitally penetrate the heavily guarded banking ledgers associated with the rapidly failing real estate empire. It only took his specialized team a few intense hours to uncover a highly suspicious offshore wire transfer executed just 48 hours prior to my narrowly avoided assassination attempt. There is a massive undocumented cash withdrawal located right here that perfectly matches the typical payment structure utilized for compensating black market contractors, he pointed out while sliding the printed banking ledger across the polished mahogany table. This undeniable financial footprint was the exact leverage we desperately needed to legally connect my wealthy father to the corrupt mechanic Jack had recently hired to sabotage my vehicle. In addition to securing the banking records, I requested that Mr. Hawthorne hire a private investigator to track down the exact location of the illicit auto repair shop Jack frequented. Finding the actual mechanic who physically severed my brake lines would provide the definitive eyewitness testimony required to secure a guaranteed criminal conviction against my murderous family members. We immediately began compiling a comprehensive legal dossier of irrefutable evidence, linking that specific monetary withdrawal directly to the deliberate mechanical tampering of my abandoned BMW. Mr. Hawthorne quickly drafted a series of emergency legal injunctions designed to completely freeze those specific corporate assets the moment we decided to present our accumulated evidence to the federal authorities. Building an airtight criminal case against my own blood relatives required absolute precision, since wealthy individuals routinely possess the financial resources to aggressively manipulate the local justice system. I refuse to let them successfully steal my maternal inheritance or escape the severe legal consequences of their unforgivable familial treachery under any circumstances. Working methodically alongside my dedicated attorney transformed my overwhelming sense of personal betrayal into a cold calculation designed to ensure their ultimate destruction behind concrete prison walls. Exactly 3 days after my orchestrated disappearance paralyzed the local authorities, a profound sense of suffocating panic finally consumed my treacherous family. The official search teams completely failed to locate my physical remains or the sabotaged BMW anywhere near the dangerous island cliffs. Their sinister expectation of a quick inheritance settlement rapidly transformed into a terrifying nightmare of prolonged police scrutiny. I purchased an untraceable prepaid cellular device, specifically to initiate a psychological warfare campaign against the people occupying my childhood home. My very first anonymous text message was strategically directed to Julie, featuring the recently discovered offshore banking documents. I explicitly implied that my father was secretly transferring the remaining corporate funds abroad to abandon her completely once the criminal investigation intensified. Did you honestly believe you could steal the remaining corporate capital without me noticing your pathetic escape plan? Julie viciously screamed at my father, according to the audio surveillance we later recovered. Immediately after sowing that initial seed of marital discord, I targeted Jack with a significantly more threatening digital ultimatum. I forwarded him a crystal-clear surveillance photograph directly capturing his illicit cash transaction with the corrupt automobile mechanic. The attached anonymous message ruthlessly threatened to deliver this undeniable visual evidence directly to the federal prosecutors unless he confessed everything immediately. Someone knows exactly what we did at the auto shop, so we need to destroy all the physical evidence right now. Jack frantically yelled while pacing across the living room floor. His escalating paranoia reached a dangerous peak when he desperately attempted to contact the illicit mechanic utilizing various anonymous communication channels. The corrupt mechanic had already disconnected his primary numbers, leaving Jack completely isolated without any reliable source of criminal guidance. The once unified front of my greedy relatives instantly shattered into a pathetic display of mutual suspicion as they tried saving themselves. Julie simultaneously locked herself inside the master bedroom, demanding full, unrestricted access to the corporate banking accounts before she filed for immediate divorce. My father vehemently denied plotting any solitary escape, while furiously accusing Julie of orchestrating the anonymous blackmail scheme to secure the money for herself. Their violent verbal altercations echoed continuously throughout the massive estate, while they practically tore each other apart over their impending financial doom. This deliberately manufactured domestic chaos successfully diverted their collective attention away from the ongoing legal maneuvers happening behind their backs. While my family engaged in their vicious cycle of mutual destruction, Mr. Hawthorne secured the final piece of the evidentiary puzzle. He successfully obtained the fully authenticated bank statements definitively tracing the dirty money directly from my father to the criminal sabotage operation. These official banking records provided the exact chronological timeline necessary to officially validate the premeditated nature of this horrific familial conspiracy. We possess the absolute undeniable financial proof required to ensure your entire family faces maximum federal prison sentences, Mr. Hawthorne confirmed with deep professional satisfaction. Holding those certified financial documents firmly in my hands provided a deeply satisfying surge of vindication after enduring such horrific biological betrayal. I possess the absolute power to completely dismantle their comfortable lives, yet I needed the timing to be absolutely flawless to ensure maximum destruction. Watching my enemies slowly destroy themselves from the shadows proved that absolute patience is a profoundly lethal weapon against arrogant criminals. They remained completely oblivious to the fact that their supposed victim was meticulously orchestrating their ultimate downfall from a cheap motel room. My carefully calculated psychological attacks successfully trapped them inside a terrifying web of paranoia that would soon seal their tragic legal fate. Exactly 1 week after my sudden departure from Mercer Island, the final trap was officially set into motion. My treacherous relatives foolishly decided to organize an intimate memorial service at the estate to expedite the legal transfer of my maternal inheritance. They desperately needed an official declaration of death to satisfy the aggressive corporate creditors threatening to liquidate my father's failing real estate empire. They had shamelessly invited several prominent community members to witness their fake grief, portraying themselves as devastatingly heartbroken parents losing their beloved child. I immediately contacted a local police detective named Officer Bradley to hand over the authenticated banking records, proving their premeditated financial sabotage. Officer Bradley meticulously reviewed the undeniable paper trail before agreeing to position his tactical units discreetly outside the property perimeter, awaiting my specific signal. He recognized the extreme volatility of the situation, deciding to bypass the standard warrant procedures by declaring an immediate public safety emergency. He explicitly instructed his armed officers to remain completely invisible until I successfully cornered the suspects inside the primary residence. Inside the heavily guarded mansion, Norman quietly capitalized on the chaotic event preparations to execute his own critical phase of our counterattack. The loyal Butler skillfully planted a miniature audio recording device directly underneath the mahogany coffee table, located in the center of the main living room. He navigated the crowded corridors completely unnoticed, relying on his 30 years of invisible service to manipulate their false sense of absolute security. He patiently monitored the secret surveillance equipment from his private quarters, hoping the mounting psychological pressure would force someone into making a fatal verbal mistake. His unwavering patience was richly rewarded when Jack aggressively confronted his mother about the escalating police scrutiny surrounding my unresolved disappearance. The hidden microphone clearly captured the sound of shattering glass, followed immediately by a violent verbal altercation regarding their crumbling alibi. "I personally paid that mechanic to sever those brake lines, so you need to stop acting like I did nothing to save this miserable family," Jack screamed in pure frustration. Julie immediately attempted to silence his explosive outburst, fearing the nearby catering staff might overhear their gruesome conversation through the thin mansion walls. Norman quickly saved the explosive audio file containing the definitive murder confession before securely transmitting the digital recording directly to my new cellular device. Listening to his absolutely remorseless voice echoing through the tiny motel room instantly eradicated any lingering hesitation I felt about destroying their comfortable lives. They possessed absolutely no remorse for actively plotting my brutal murder, so I owed them absolutely no mercy in return. I deliberately dressed in entirely black clothing to mourn the final death of our biological bond before officially checking out of the temporary roadside accommodation. Gripping the steering wheel of my rental vehicle provided a massive surge of empowering adrenaline as I navigated the familiar dark route back toward my childhood home. The relentless rain began pouring down across the empty island roads, perfectly matching the dark emotional storm raging violently inside my hollow chest. They were currently raising their expensive wine glasses to celebrate their impending financial victory, while I was rapidly approaching the front gates, bringing their absolute destruction. I refused to let them successfully finalize their fraudulent inheritance paperwork or shed another fake tear over my supposed tragic demise in front of their wealthy guests. Parking quietly near the secluded side entrance allowed me to easily bypass the remaining security personnel lingering near the illuminated main driveway. I took one final deep breath to steady my racing heart before marching directly toward the illuminated living room windows. Every single step toward those heavy wooden doors felt like forcefully reclaiming my stolen power from the greedy predators who unfortunately shared my bloodline. The time for hiding in the shadows was permanently over because I was finally ready to look my attempted murderers directly in the eyes. Exactly at 8 o'clock in the evening, I confidently pushed open the heavy mahogany doors leading directly into the sprawling Vance family living room. My father, alongside Julie with Jack, were standing comfortably around the central coffee table holding expensive crystal wine glasses to celebrate their impending financial victory. They were literally mere seconds away from signing the fraudulent temporary inheritance documents designed to completely transfer my maternal trust fund into their greedy hands. My sudden physical appearance inside the brightly illuminated room caused Jack to violently flinch backward in absolute terror. His trembling fingers immediately lost their grip, causing the expensive wine glass to shatter violently against the polished hardwood floor, splashing dark red liquid everywhere. Julie instinctively attempted to salvage their crumbling facade by rushing forward with outstretched arms to play the role of a desperately relieved mother. I felt utterly disgusted by her theatrical performance, so I immediately sidestepped her fake embrace while aggressively swatting her reaching hands away from my physical space. We were absolutely terrified that something horrific had happened to you out there in the dangerous storm. Julie whimpered with perfectly manufactured tears streaming down her pale face. I refused to entertain her pathetic lies for another single second, knowing exactly how much blood they were genuinely willing to spill for my inheritance. Maintaining my cold composure allowed me to stare directly into her deceptive eyes with pure, unadulterated contempt. Reaching inside my dark trench coat allowed me to retrieve the thick stack of authenticated bank statements proving their deadly financial conspiracy beyond any reasonable doubt. I forcefully slammed the undeniable financial evidence down onto the glass coffee table, scattering their fraudulent legal inheritance documents across the expensive Persian rug. Those certified banking records clearly show the exact offshore monetary transfers you authorized to pay the corrupt mechanic who deliberately sabotaged my vehicle, I stated with absolute venom. My father defensively puffed out his chest, attempting to project an aura of innocent authority, despite his rapidly sweating forehead betraying his intense internal panic. He opened his mouth to formulate a desperate denial before I completely shut him down by revealing my ultimate trump card. Without giving them any opportunity to coordinate a cohesive lie, I pulled out my cellular device to play the secret audio file Norman had recently captured. Jack's own frantic voice echoed loudly throughout the silent living room, explicitly confessing to ordering the mechanical sabotage to clear his massive syndicate debts. A suffocating atmosphere of deadly silence instantly consumed the massive room as the terrifying reality of their failed assassination plot finally dawned on all three conspirators. Jack collapsed onto the nearby leather sofa, clutching his pale face in absolute despair, realizing his criminal actions were now permanently documented for the federal prosecutors. My father frantically attempted to formulate a desperate legal defense by claiming the recorded audio was illegally obtained, fabricated evidence designed to destroy his corporate reputation. You cannot simply walk into my house presenting forged documents expecting me to surrender my legitimate corporate assets to your insane paranoid delusions, my father shouted defensively. His pathetic attempts at authoritative intimidation completely failed to move me, because Chloe was already maintaining an open communication line with the tactical police units waiting outside. The distant wailing sounds of approaching police sirens rapidly pierced the quiet island night, confirming that Officer Bradley had finally initiated the coordinated tactical raid. Flashing emergency lights violently illuminated the living room windows, signaling the absolute conclusion of their greedy reign over my maternal inheritance. I stood completely still, watching their arrogant expressions crumble into pure, terrifying realization, knowing they could never escape this nightmare. Exactly 2 months after that fateful trial concluded inside the federal courthouse, my entire biological family finally faced the severe legal consequences of their unforgivable greed. The presiding judge showed absolutely no leniency while aggressively sentencing my father alongside Julie to lengthy prison terms for orchestrating a premeditated conspiracy to commit murder. Watching the armed bailiffs securely place heavy steel handcuffs tightly around their wrists provided a deeply satisfying sense of permanent closure to my terrifying ordeal. Jack received an equally devastating punishment because his massive illegal gambling debts immediately triggered a ruthless financial seizure executed by his dangerous underworld creditors. The violent syndicate completely stripped away his remaining personal assets right before he was officially transferred to a maximum security correctional facility to serve his criminal sentence. Gaining total undisputed legal control over the massive trust fund allowed me to swiftly execute a comprehensive financial restructuring of the failing real estate empire. I hired a completely new executive management team to ruthlessly liquidate the toxic corporate assets my father had recklessly accumulated during his disastrous leadership tenure. Purging the corrupt business infrastructure finally stabilized the remaining property investments, while completely severing any lingering financial ties to my incarcerated biological relatives forever. The massive public scandal surrounding the attempted murder plot permanently destroyed my father's remaining professional reputation within the wealthy corporate community. Local news outlets continuously broadcasted the shocking trial details, ensuring their deceitful legacy would forever be associated with overwhelming greed instead of successful business ventures. Watching their arrogant kingdom completely crumble into worthless ashes solidified my belief that karma eventually catches up to those who maliciously betray their own blood. Ensuring the absolute safety of the loyal people who actively protected my life during the darkest moments became my highest personal priority following the dramatic legal victory. I established a highly generous retirement portfolio specifically dedicated to Norman, guaranteeing the elderly Butler would experience a comfortable existence without ever needing to work again. Purchasing a beautiful, secluded cottage near the quiet coastline provided him with the peaceful sanctuary he truly deserved after risking his own life to expose the deadly conspiracy. Chloe also received a substantial anonymous monetary donation directed toward her favorite charitable organization as a silent token of my eternal gratitude for her unwavering nighttime assistance. Standing completely alone on the pristine front lawn of the massive Mercer Island estate brought an overwhelming wave of profound clarity regarding my terrifying survival journey. The sprawling, luxurious mansion officially belonged entirely to me now, yet the expensive architectural structure felt entirely empty of any genuine familial warmth or cherished childhood memories. I decided to immediately list the entire property for sale, intending to use the massive financial proceeds to establish a brand new independent life far away from Seattle. Leaving those haunted geographic locations behind represented the final necessary step toward achieving total psychological freedom from my traumatic past.
Câu chuyện trên hoàn toàn mang tính chất là hư cấu, nhưng lại phản chiếu một góc nhìn rất thật của cuộc sống, nơi lòng tham có thể làm méo mó cả những mối quan hệ tưởng chừng thiêng liêng nhất. Đôi khi nguy hiểm không đến từ người lạ mà lại âm thầm ẩn mình ngay trong chính gia đình, nơi mà bạn từng nghĩ là an toàn tuyệt đối. Hãy thử đặt mình vào vị trí đó. Nếu như một ngày bình thường, bạn chuẩn bị lái xe và rồi một cuộc gọi nói rằng đừng lên xe vì ai đó đã cắt phanh, và người đó chính là gia đình bạn. Bạn sẽ làm gì? Hoảng loạn, bỏ chạy, hay như Denise biến mất trong im lặng? Bạn không đối đầu ngay, bạn quan sát, thu thập từng mảnh ghép sự thật để chính họ tự lộ ra bản chất. Và khi bạn quay trở lại, bạn không còn là nạn nhân nữa, bạn là người nắm toàn bộ bằng chứng và là người quyết định kết thúc câu chuyện. Từ đó ta rút ra bài học: đừng đặt niềm tin tuyệt đối vào bất kỳ mối quan hệ nào nếu thiếu sự quan sát và giới hạn rõ ràng. Tiền bạc và quyền lợi luôn là phép thử mạnh nhất của nhân cách con người. Khi đối mặt với sự nguy hiểm hoặc khủng hoảng, giữ được sự bình tĩnh và tư duy logic quan trọng hơn phản ứng cảm xúc. Sự độc lập, đặc biệt là tài chính và pháp lý, chính là lớp bảo vệ giúp bạn không phụ thuộc hoặc bị thao túng. Và quan trọng nhất, bảo vệ bản thân không phải là ích kỷ mà là trách nhiệm bạn phải có đối với cuộc đời mình. Nếu người thân mà bạn tin tưởng nhất lại âm thầm dàn dựng một sự phản bội chết người như vậy, bạn sẽ phản ứng như thế nào? Hãy chia sẻ suy nghĩ chân thật của bạn trong phần bình luận bên dưới nhé, vì chúng tôi thực sự trân trọng góc nhìn của bạn.